Good morning and welcome to the Marion County Board of Commissioners regular Wednesday board session. Today is Wednesday, November 21st, 2012, and we are meeting here in the Commissioners Boardroom at 1115 Commercial Street Northeast in Salem. We begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I forget, because after we get through our agenda this morning and we usually wrap things up with sharing information, I just want to right now say Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. It is tomorrow, and it's a really, really important observance and celebration for all of us as Americans. And I think sometimes now we've got the Christmas decorations already in the store, and I don't want to see Thanksgiving get lost in the midst of everything else that's happening. So we have much to be thankful for here in the United States of America. So next on our agenda is public comment. And I don't think anybody has signed up for that, so I'll just remind people that this is an opportunity to come and share any thoughts or ideas or questions or concerns that you might have. And of course, you would be here live on CCTV. And so if you have a message you want to share, feel free to come, 9 a.m. on Wednesday mornings. Next is our consent calendar, and Commissioner Carlson?
Okay, Madam Chair, I would move today's consent calendar. There's quite a few items, and I may have to check some pronunciations of names here as I go through. So under Board of Commissioners, OLCC applications recommend for approval is the Big Buddha Inc. in Salem. Approve orders appointing George Mueller as chair and Ted Dingman as vice chair of the Marion County Parks Commission for 2-year terms ending November 30th, 2014. Approve an order appointing Dennis Person to the Marion County Planning Commission for a 4-year term ending November 21st, 2016. Approve an order appointing Todd Irvine to the Solid Waste Management Advisory Council for a term beginning November 27th, 2012 through October 31st, 2016. Under Business Services, approve a recommendation to reclassify a Department Specialist 3 to a Human Resources Specialist. Under the Clerk's Office, approve renewal of an incoming funds license agreement with Technical Imaging Systems, Inc. to receive images of recorded land records through a secure FTP website through December 31st, 2016. Under Health, receive the Ambulance Service Area Administrator's recommendation for new ASA franchises and set a public hearing for December 5th, 2012 to receive public comment on ASA franchise applications. And approve recertifying Marion County's ambulance service area plan to incorporate changes requested by the Oregon Health Authority. Oh, and one more under Health. Approve revised ambulance service area advisory committee bylaws. Under the Sheriff's Office, approve renewal of an intergovernmental agreement for $209,161 with Chemeketa Community College to provide the SOAR program, which is Student Opportunity for Achieving Results, which assists parole and probation clients with education and workforce skills. Under Tax Collector, approve an order authorizing a property tax refund in the amount of $46,269.79 to AG Meriwether Salem Corporation, and approve an order authorizing a property tax refund in the amount of $133,984.38 to Thomas P. Moyer Theaters. And under Treasure, consider approval of an order distributing revenues from ORS Chapter 530 Timberlands.
Second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 That's approved. We'll move to the action items now. And first on our agenda is to consider approval of an order appointing Susan Thompson to the Oregon Garden Foundation Board of Directors for an unfulfilled term ending December 31st, 2012, and extending appointment for a 2-year term ending December 31st, 2014. Kathy Crocker is here to introduce. Most of us know Susan quite well, but Kathy introduced this item and the position.
Good morning, Commissioners, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I am Kathy Crocker, Volunteer Services Coordinator for Marion County, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Susan Thompson for recommended service to the Oregon Garden Foundation Board. As you know, the Oregon Gardens are a treasure in Marion County, and the Garden Board is responsible for fiscal management and making sure that they do not exceed their revenues. And Susan has a passion for the gardens. She can tell you about that herself, but I've had the pleasure of serving on several committees with Susan, and I can assure you that if she says she's going to do something, she is going to do it. So, Susan, if you'd like to introduce yourself and say anything.
Thank you, Kathy. And good morning, Commissioners, and good morning, everyone here, and good morning, family members over there who...
Would you like to introduce? Please do. Introduce your family.
I would love to. This is my husband, Jerry Thompson, and Derek Brager, and Myra Brager, and of course, we have baby Coraline, who is asleep.
And we're ready to take care of her if she's
And
not.
thank you very much.
Especially Grandpa Brantano.
Well, I wanted to say that I am really thrilled to be able to serve on this commission or board, and I've had a passion, as has my husband Jerry, for years, since the beginning of the garden, for the concept of it, the working of it, and the future possibilities that it has. And I can see many things that I might be able to do to help out, and since that's the case, and since I'm here just to help promote it and develop it and raise money for it and whatever needs to be done, thank you for allowing me to do it.
Good, and thank you so much for stepping forward. I'm quite familiar with much of the involvement that Sue has had in the past because I used to serve on the Oregon Garden Foundation Board, and now, of course, Commissioner Sam Brantano does. But when I was serving on the board, you were involved in I guess I could call it a subcommittee. And as you've mentioned, you already have an extensive background, but you're familiar more recently, too, with many of the challenges and what the board is all about. So you have a running head start to join, and I'm so glad that you're going to do this. I really, really appreciate it, and it was time for you to be appointed to this committee. I was hoping you might have done it a while ago, and it wasn't because you weren't ready, but it was, now there's this seat available, so thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know where to start. You were hinting at it. She's written that she's been involved Red Cross, Carousel, Chemeketa Community, Mid-Valley Mentors, Escape Child Abuse Prevention Center, and others. And I know Stenda is an interim assessor, pretty well acquainted with the county. And as Sue said, she has a background in a previous involvement with the garden. She actually attended our board meeting last week because she's so anxious to get started. I guess she doesn't even need to be appointed. But came with a whole notebook and showed probably more experience in the garden than probably anybody there. So certainly it'll be a welcome addition. And then more than just Susan, personally, our board is complete now. We were met and established Bonnie was 2 weeks ago last time we met. So we have a full board, a new development director, and we got some sorting out to do, and then we're heading places.
Great.
I'm excited about it.
Great. Well, we all love the garden, and we want it to be successful for a variety of reasons. And again, I'm so appreciative you're doing this. Commissioner Carlson?
Well, boy, you didn't leave me much to say, but I think, did you mention that she's on BOPTA too for many years, Board of Property
There you
Tax
go.
Appeals,
There's
so I
lots
get to
more
add
to
one more. But yeah, everything you said about Sue is absolutely true. She's just, she's a doer, worker. She's just got boundless energy, I guess, is the best way to describe her. And I've had the chance to work with her on some of these boards in a number of different capacities, and just really appreciate all that you do for the community, and just know you're going to be a wonderful addition to this board. So I want to ask Sam, since he's currently serving on the board, do you have any words of advice for her as she gets onto this board?
Yeah, probably the same one that you follow. Don't listen to anything I say, and it'll all go better. She was a little worried about coming here this morning, like this was some big inquisition, and I promised her I'd grill her. And then when I want to, all I can find is good things to say. I feel like I let everybody down, but I'm so glad you're going to do it, and I look forward to working with you. So I want to make a motion to approve the order appointing Sue Thompson as Oregon Garden Foundation Board of Directors for a term through it all that ends December 31st, 2014.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second, and I will just say one more time, Sue is, what we've all been saying is she's a doer. We've all witnessed it firsthand. We know that she's going to be great on it. And the only advice I'd give, it is a working board. There's a lot of work that everyone can jump into, lots of things to be done, and I know you won't hesitate, so good. Okay, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Okay, and thank you. And Cora Lynn was fine.
Was.
She made it through.
We put her to sleep, or kept her asleep, I don't know.
That could happen.
Thank you very much, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thanks.
Thanksgiving.
You too, to you and your family. All right, our next item on the agenda is to consider ratification of a collective bargaining agreement for 2012-2014 with the Marion County Employee Association. And Kathy Sharp, you're going to tell us all about it. We finally have a document in front of us to sign, so that everything must be very complete, thorough, everything in order on the other end, so we can move forward today.
That's what I'm told.
Good.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I am Kathy Sharp, the interim HR manager for Marion County, and I'm here to provide you some information on the tentatively agreed to contract for the Marion County Employee Association for July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2014. MCEA is the acronym that we use for the Employee Association, is the general unit with approximately 700 members throughout the county. So most departments have some MCEA employees within their department, and the members ratified the contract by a vote on October 24th, 2012. I wanted to share a little bit of information about the economics of the contract. This contract, there were no pay adjustments or COLAs agreed to for this contract period. The first year of the county's healthcare contribution is maintained at $13.46, which was the rate for the last year of the contract. In the second year of the contract, it has a reopener if the cost of renewing the current plan exceeds 8% of the employer's contribution, then there would be a reopener, and we would be bargaining over the cap of $13.46. The other significant change that's included in the contract is some language around flexible schedules. Flexible schedules is the item that the MCEA bargaining team said was their top priority during contract negotiations. The added flexibility gives departments and employees the ability to flex schedules for personal employee needs or other than illness. So the current contract has a clause in it that allows for employees to flex for illness or medical related. We heard from the employees during the bargaining session that they wanted more flexibility than that. They wanted to be able to flex for maybe a soccer game with a child or for something at school with their child. And so we did agree on some language. The language adds flexibility, but it also gives the department the ability to say no based on business needs. We still have to run the operations, so We are being more flexible, but within, also looked at the interest of the county when we looked at that language. The other changes in the contract, I would say, are more of a housekeeping nature. We cleaned up contract language that might have been ambiguous, or we set an intent. If there was something that was confusing for people, we cleaned that up. We took out specific people references and changed things, like instead of saying the HR manager, we said human resources, so it gives a little more flexibility. So those are the large items.
Good. Well, you've gone over these points quite well. They are the health benefit, the cap, and what happens, what might trigger some future discussion, to put it in layman's terms for any of our viewers here, and the flexible schedule. It is important that we're a good employer and our employees can maintain and balance all the responsibilities of work and family, and being able to go to a child's, the parent-teacher conference is really important. I'm glad you also emphasized that we're running an organization here too, and we have to have people at work and providing the services and the programs and utilizing the taxpayer dollars to the maximum benefit of the community. So managers have the opportunity to work with that.
Exactly.
And the authority to work with that. So, so other than that, I'm just really glad we're finally able to sign this and move on.
Just clarification, has it been signed?
It has been signed by MCEA.
Fine.
Right, we do have a signed contract.
That my version didn't have it, I was just curious.
Right. And that's what I know yesterday I had a conversation with Jan, and I kept saying, and it is signed, it's fully signed, there's nothing before we had it on our agenda today, so that is the fact. Okay.
So if I could, I'm looking for, I didn't bring my red line copy with me, and I'm trying to compare what's in the notebook with the copy. So where is the clause about the flexible time?
It's Article 4,
Oh, okay.
hours of work, Section 5 and 6.
Okay,
Page 47, yeah.
right.
Let's see, not 40.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Well, and the
Or
other
others?
part I guess I'm asking about, and I was looking through it, is where they had the grammatical errors. So it looks like they've gone through and fixed all of that. Is that,
That was our hope.
so you don't know for sure?
I believe that Angelique and somebody from MCEA went through the contract and cleaned
Okay.
up the grammatical.
Would it be possible for us to get the red line, the final red line version of it,
Absolutely.
as opposed to just, because it's really important for me to be able to see where the changes took place?
We'll get that to you today.
Okay. So I'll have to do this on faith, which doesn't make me entirely comfortable, but.
I understand. I
Right.
agree. That's why I kept asking.
Right, and I
all
think
those
in the
questions.
future, if we could have the red line copies in the notebooks along with the final copy, that would be,
I have a red-lined copy here for my use. Would you like to see that?
yeah, I really would. That would be great. Haven't had as much opportunity to pull my papers out because my foot keeps me planted here.
You know, while you're looking and back in section 5, and it doesn't quite, I'm not gonna not sign it double negative that it is, but it was a little clear the way it was explained that in cases where there'd be overtime, that we wouldn't be obligated to do that, and I don't really see that exactly here. In fact, it goes the other way. Daily overtime shift differential will be waived. I don't know who's waiving what. So it isn't quite as I wanted it.
The clarity isn't quite there. Again, it's, so go ahead, Kathy.
So for alternative work schedules, daily overtime and shift differential will be waived to accommodate the request. So the county won't be paying daily shift differentials or overtime.
Okay, I just didn't read it that way, and I want it to be that way. Because we get into situations we'd like to let people off, but if it means we let them off and have to pay overtime, especially as budgets get pinched, it puts us in a bad position, and it doesn't provide service to the community. So if that does that, doesn't say it the way I'd say it, but
Yeah.
okay.
Gloria, that was your understanding of the intent of the language also?
That's correct. Both subsection 5 and 6 have that provision that says that the daily overtime and shift differential shall be waived. The difference between section 5 and section 6, the alternative work schedules, is we have employees that are on a variety of regular alternative schedules, some that start at 7:30 and then maybe get done at 4:30. So, or they might work a 4-day work week if operational needs allow that. So that's where we have the provisions in there that say you don't get a shift differential, you don't get a overtime if we're doing it to accommodate the request.
Okay.
The flexible work time, that's more of a short-term type of thing where, perhaps there's a parent-teacher conference or someone might have a class that they want to attend that they need to leave a half an hour early. So just on the short-term basis, you allow them to flex it by making up that hour or half hour or whatever they've taken off on another day. But it has to be within the same work week under the wage and hour laws. So like I said, that is more of a short-term thing. But during the negotiations, there was a lot of testimony from employees about being a family-friendly employer and how this would help them be able to attend a child's program at school or some other personal growth need or something like that. But again, it's within business need, it's with the discretion of the management, and there has to be no additional cost associated with either these alternative schedules or these flexible schedules to the county as an employer.
If I could jump in, the way I see it, but I want to verify with what you've just talked about, Gloria, is, again, accommodating a child's parent-teacher conference or some special concert maybe, or even a personal development situation. Does that half hour or hour that the individual will be gone, is it required it's made up in the same pay period? I'm thinking that's, I'm reading it into, or the same week. It has to be, and the reason I'm asking is then that that individual continues to work the full hours he or she is required to work in that week or a pay period, if that's the case. And if it's made up in a very short period of time, the same week, that's really helpful to me. Again, as I said earlier, allowing that flexibility. We want to be family friendly, but we are also, we're a very, very busy organization. Everyone has a lot of work to do, and if someone is gone, even a half hour here, a half hour there, for reasons that nobody would argue with, but work doesn't get done. But if that work is made up and the individual works their full work time in that week, that really helps, I think, to explain what's going on. So,
Madam Chair, that's correct. And it has to be the same work week, not the pay period. We're on a bi-weekly pay period, but the law requires it to be in that same week. There has to be some amount of forethought and planning. I know if I'm going to ask for an hour off on Friday, I've got to make that up ahead of time to
Right.
put that time in the bank, basically. But it does allow us to make sure the full amount of work is getting done. The alternative is that they would use accrued leaves, but then they're gone and they're not performing the work.
Right.
Right. So just to make a note, we are pretty generous with our accrued leave, and so we did employees were able to take vacation time in the past for appointments and to attend child's games and things like that. But now this just gives them the opportunity to flex it versus using their accruals.
Well, correct me if I'm mistaken, but as we're talking about this, I see this flex time for family appointments or personal. Really, there's more assurance that the full work time is actually happening, and that work that needs to be done will in fact be done, versus vacation time, the use of a vacation time. So, and your example, Gloria, the forethought that an employee has to give. If I'm going to be gone on Friday, I have to make it up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, or if you're gone on a Wednesday. So I think that's good. I think that's fair, and I just would add a footnote then. Hopefully the supervisors and the managers will really, really stay on top of this and enforce it. It'll make everybody much happier in the long run and get people into a routine of this is how it works, and there is no leeway to these parameters.
This is particularly important, Madam Chair, in those departments where the employees are working and it's a fee-for-service type of thing. So if they're not there working, we're losing revenue to the program or the
Right.
services being provided.
Good. Okay.
So,
You
if
ca- you
I
came up
could
with
just
some-
make a couple comments. Now, first of all, I don't want to lose sight of the big picture here, which is we have a contract that has already been signed. Very pleased, appreciate all the work of everybody that made that possible. I recognize that this was not an easy negotiation this time. I think there were a lot of communication problems throughout, and I'm hoping that perhaps we can resolve those in the future. I think that, I know we all got tons and tons of emails and phone calls from people, and yet because of the collective bargaining laws and the legal process we're going through, I think we've been advised that we don't respond to those. At least I don't. I just make it a practice not to respond to them. So as much as I would have wanted, and I got them pro and con. I had employees calling me saying, "Stick to your guns, don't move." And either way, I didn't call back or make any comments about them because of the legal process that we went through. But I certainly am happy that we have that flexible language in. From what I understand, some departments were a little bit more stringent about the language than others, and so this makes it all consistent across the county. And it does have the provision that it has to have prior approval, and it has to meet the business needs of the county. So it's not like somebody can just come in and demand to be able to go to a soccer game or whatever. But if they can work it out, and the department doesn't have to hire someone or to take their place, I think that's really good. The healthcare costs, and these we've talked about this a number of times before. But Marion County has, in spite of the fact that healthcare costs have escalated everywhere. You talk to any private business person, you look at the state, you look at the school district, you look elsewhere, healthcare costs have just gone up and up. So we have been able to manage, I think, very well, and it's a tribute to our management staff and our collective bargaining staff that they've been able to meet together in what they call HISC, which is the Health Insurance Study Committee, which allows them to take a look at the plans. And so I know when I first started with the county, my copay with Kaiser, I think, was maybe $5, and now it's $15, and so those adjustments have happened. But still, I mean, that's a
really bad plan, isn't it?
right. So it's a very generous plan, and we've been quoted as saying that, and I do think so, given the times and what other people are experiencing. We in Marion County have consistently offered our employees a no-cost plan, meaning that they don't have to pay a portion of their premium share. And because of, I think, some great work on the part of our staff this year, our plans actually were at less cost than they were last year. So we're moving into a place where I think we have two different plans that are of no cost to the employee. And we also have health savings accounts and a lot of options for employees in terms of health care and family health care. So the chances of the healthcare costs going up astronomically next year, I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen, but I think it's always been the intention of the board and of management to be able to keep the costs down and to offer as economical a plan as possible to employees. There was a lot of worry, I think, on the part of the employees that they would have to pay several $100s in premium share, which they haven't had to pay before. Certainly that it would be my hope that that would never happen. And this formalizes in the language that if the healthcare costs go up, what's it, 8% over the cap, something like that, then we'll have that conversation. But I think we had talked as a board that even if we had done just the final offer, that we would have been able to have those conversations when that time came, if the issue arose. So this really aligns a lot with where we were anyway, I think. So I appreciate that as well. And we have great employees in Marion County. They work really, really hard, and we need them. They do a great job. And so I'm just glad we have this contract and we can move forward. So now to the grammar, all right?
So really important stuff.
Which is that I don't want to send this back. And so I've marked it. I'll give this back to you, Kathy, on your
Okay.
copy. But there
Thank
are
you.
still places. So I will be approving this, knowing that it's grammatically incorrect in Article 9, Sections 6 and 7, and Article 12, Section 2, and, yeah, it's just F in Section 2, same section. So at the first opportunity, we have to look at this again.
Let's get it correct.
Right, if we could get this correct. And it's simply a singular plural agreement issue, all right? So if you have an employee, it's not their, because their responds to more than one employee. And as awkward as his and her is, it really does have to be his or her because it's singular. If you say employees, plural, so here's one example that I gave where you could keep it the same way. Employees shall be paid at one of the rates in the pay range for their classification, then employees, plural, would be there. All right, because it's a plural noun and a subject and a plural modifier. So when I saw these initially, I went, ouch, why are we changing this to make it grammatically incorrect? And we raised it in the meeting that we had about it, but it looks like either people don't understand the grammar, so they didn't think it was wrong, or there was a desire to leave it the way it is and not rock the boat. So either way, I will not rock the boat either, other than to put it on the record that I am not always comfortable approving things that are grammatically incorrect.
Thank you.
And I want to second that motion, and yes, I certainly agree with Commissioner Carlson, and I would like it on the record too, that I cannot believe these very simple, 6th grade, 7th grade grammatical errors persist, and it is important because it's a reflection of who we are and how we do business, and it is annoying when it comes forward like that. But I agree with Commissioner Carlson. I'm not going to rock the boat. We have an agreement that in concept and translation works really well for everybody. And I wanted to be certain too, before we're finished with this, to acknowledge our employees. And I know this, going through this bargaining process, particularly for what I would call the average, the ordinary worker, people who don't get really involved in the political aspect of unions and bargaining, it's difficult, and people just want to go to work and do their job, and we do have great employees, and so I'm really, really happy this is behind us, and we can move on. So in all of that, did we have a
I can make a motion. So I will move that the board ratifies, and we actually ratified it once before. So are we ratifying our ratification, or are we just redoing the ratification? Gloria, tell me what we're doing.
This is, Madam Chair, Commissioners, this is actually just the signing ceremony. You have already ratified the contract. You could re-ratify your ratification, but you've already voted to approve it, so
Right.
You wouldn't be able to undo that at this point.
Right.
There was a special meeting in order to meet the deadline of our tentative agreement, where we finally had kind of broken the log jam and reached an agreement with the Employees Association.
So maybe we'll affirm our ratification of the collective bargaining
That sounds
agreement for
good.
2012-14 with Marion County Employees Association, and then sign the contract. That's my motion.
I'll second it. I wish I had made the motion so I could have been grammatically incorrect. Anyway, I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second that we will affirm the ratification of the collective bargaining agreement for 2012-2014 with Marion County Employees Association. Any other comments? Okay, those in favor say aye.
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 And that's unanimous. And so now we'll be able to sign that, and we're finished, at least for the next several months.
And
Thank you.
when do we
Thank
start
you.
again? Pretty soon?
I think we have a year.
A year.
A year and a half or so.
You have a few other
This
bargaining
one.
units you're
But
going
we
to
have
start.
a few other bargaining
Right.
units, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a perpetual cycle. Thank you very much, Madam
Okay.
Chair and Commissioners.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. All right, next, and our last item on our agenda this morning is Public Works, receive and consider appeal of hearings officer's decision denying CU 12-028 Sonnen Clerk's File number 5673. And Joe Fenimore is here to explain this to us.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, this is Joe Fenimore. This item before you today is an application to conduct 6 events on a 70-acre tract in an EFU zone located at 13206 Killiam Loop Road, Northeast Woodburn. On August 8, 2012, the hearings officer held a public hearing on the request and left the record open until August 17th. On October 15th, the hearings officer issued a decision denying the request, and on October 25th, the decision was appealed by the applicant. The events are described by the applicant as being match horse races with live music. The hearings officer determined that the applicant did not meet the burden of proving that all the applicable standards and criteria were met and denied the request. Specifically, the applicant did not adequately demonstrate that the use is incidental and subordinate to the existing farm use on the tract. That land was altered by grading of the tract and construction of a berm. Additional information is needed on the types of farm practices taking place in the area and the impact the proposed use will have on them. Additional information is needed on sanitation to evaluate how the quality of water will be affected. And that a condition of approval in a previous case required the applicant to relocate a fence. However, that was not accomplished, creating a violation that cannot be resolved by this case. In the appeal, the applicant submitted additional information on income generated by the farm use on the property to demonstrate that the primary use of the property is farm use and the events are incidental and subordinate to that use. The applicant states that the tract is not graded but rotivated before each use, and that the berm existed on the property at the time it was purchased in 2001. It wasn't constructed specifically for these events. The applicant intends to meet Marion County Health Department requirements, providing approved wash stations and proper disposal of waste, and the dust abatement agreement with Public Works to water the road on Killiam Loop to reduce dust. Lastly, the applicant notes that the previous conditional use was a request that was denied. Therefore, there was no condition of approval and no existing violation. The board has the option to accept the appeal and remand the case back to the hearings officer, requiring agreement from the applicant to extend the 150-day decision-making deadline. Accept the appeal and schedule a public hearing. Suggested hearing date, if that is the case, is December 5th. Deny the appeal and uphold the hearings officer's decision denying the application. And I'll be happy to try and answer any questions.
Okay. I think at least for me, to try to simplify this, there were a number of items. You went over each one of those in your comments. Can you address those? I was particularly interested in the final one, that because the application CU 05045 was a request that was denied, the result would be no violation. Would that be an accurate interpretation?
What the hearings officer, the comment came from Public Works about the fence in the right-of-way in the previous case and asked for a condition to be attached, that it be removed. or relocated. Because that was denied, the decision was never approved, so there was no condition of
Right,
approval.
okay.
In this case, after reviewing this, they changed the comment and said, instead of removing it, we will accept an agreement saying that if the road's ever widened, you'll have to remove them when we tell you to. And the hearings officer said that would solve that problem, except if it was a condition of a previous case, she doesn't have the authority to overturn that.
Oh, okay. So,
But since it wasn't,
Right.
then this decision could go forward with the agreement and not have the fence removed. It would not be a violation.
okay, okay. So can you go back then and talk about, from your perspective, plannings, these individual items, and are these reasonable, sufficient, accurate ways that there could be conformance, they could meet the requirements?
I think when I read the decision by the hearings officer, some of it was argument about whether, is this an events business that happens to have some farm use on it, or is it actually a farm that these are incidental to? And the applicant needs to provide additional information on that to make that argument.
So that's really kind of the gist of it.
That is the primary gist of it, yes.
Is this a bona fide farm operation that would like to supplement their farm operation with events periodically? Or are we really creating, or are they wanting, not we, are they, let me correct myself, are they creating an event business, and oh, by the way, there's a little farming to try to support it?
Correct.
So
And the
that's
hearing-
kind of where we are. All right.
And the hearings officer determined she didn't have enough information to make that decision. The other part is the impact on surrounding properties, farm properties in particular. And there was a description of the types of farming taking place, but not the actual activities that go along with that. For instance, if there's a berry farm, are there spraying at certain times? Are there specific activities, and how are these events going to have an effect on that? Is it going to be adverse? And the applicant needs to supply more information on that, according to the hearings officer.
Okay, okay, I'm sure you, go ahead. Whatever you want to do.
You want me to go ahead?
Or-
All right, well, yeah, so this is just an action item to determine whether or not we'll take the appeal as a
Right.
board or send it back or whatever.
Correct.
So we don't want to get too much into the merits of the case here, but I just wanted to make a couple comments and perhaps make sure that my thinking is correct. One was that I noticed that the applicant didn't have any representation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it just kills me that in our land use system, but we are a quasi-judicial body. So we are in land use operating like the judiciary, and it's all about evidence. And so I'll just put right out on the record now, I'm open to taking the appeal at the board level because it looked like there was quite a bit of evidence that wasn't provided. So the applicant has a couple options. One is that they just need to work really closely with planning and do their best to try to muddle through it. And the other is that they could get someone that understands land use that could help them pull together all the studies and evidence and things that have to be done. So it seemed like there were two actual, and this is where I have a question, kind of two facets to this. One is, can you do the events through the conditional use process? Is that right? And so doing that, you have to determine whether or not it's subordinate to farm use, incidental and subordinate to farm use, the various things that are in the law. And that's where I think it came down to this on page 15 of the hearings officer's report, where it says horse racing is not farm use. So all of the evidence that was provided around horse racing would not be relevant to the application. Horse boarding is a farm use, so, and hay baling and that kind of thing. So if evidence is provided around the scope of how much horse boarding there is and all of the farm use that goes around that, that would be the evidence that we're looking for. But if the applicant comes back and starts going on and on and on about the horse racing part of it, we'll have to say, well, that's all really nice, but that doesn't count in terms of what the law requires and the code requires in order to make this happen. Then it seems like the other part of it is this new agritourism statute and then the ordinance that we created around that statute. And this is really probably one of the first tests we've had around how we apply that ordinance. And one of the reasons that I would really like to take the appeal is because I'm not sure that I entirely was on board 100% with what the hearings officer was assuming as she went through around what our intent was around the events and how they relate. So I think for either prong of it, you have to show that, again, it's not events with a little bit of farming on the side. It's farming with events that have a relationship. But I think there was a reason why the legislature didn't get more specific around how you measure whether it's, incidental or not. There's a, what is it, Joe, the key line there that she was trying to do it on a monetary basis and on a how much land is used for it basis. And there was a particular, it's not coming to me right off, but that was to reflect a particular line in the statute. Okay, it was incidental and subordinate, the same line that we're using in that. And I think it's probably more defined in the conditional use process because it's been through court cases and LUBA and, we do conditional uses all over the state of Oregon. But this statute is relatively new. And anyway, I didn't, my marked copy is still at home, so I'm looking at this copy here. But anyway, my sense was that that the hearings officer was feeling like she didn't have a firm grasp because it wasn't defined about how to actually measure that. And I think it's kind of on a case-by-case basis, and that we'll be interpreting that as a board as we move through these different cases to try to find that right balance, because the agritourism was designed to promote those types of events where the, what is it called? Something in conjunction with farm use.
Commercial activity.
Commercial activities in conjunction with farm use was not about promoting events. It was about allowing other things to happen on the property of a commercial nature as long as they were clearly subordinate to the farm use. So I think that's where we may want to have some discussion when we bring this forward, and I'll be asking a lot of questions around that if the board agrees today to take the appeal. So those were my questions and comments.
I have some more comments, but go ahead, Commissioner Frantantz.
Well, I don't know. I'm just playing with something in my mind. Even the definition of farm and horse racing, I can make the case that in Kentucky, there's certainly farms, at least they're called farms, that is their business. So I don't know that you could just exclude it just because that isn't common practice here. I'm kind of going to be in favor of accepting the appeal too. Some of what Commissioner Carlson said, but it looks like kind of making a list of being able to use conditions to all with the goal of minimizing impacts to the neighborhood. I have frequency, size, time, noise, and just started that list. And hopefully we can look through it. If it does meet the requirements, then find those conditions that allow the property owner to have some use and still not bother the neighbors enough to where they want to call me at 3 in the morning and say we have a problem again.
We don't like that.
I don't like that at all.
We don't, we don't want friction between neighbors either, or between us and them. When I looked at this, what kept ringing true to me is similar to what Commissioner Carlson said. We had that legislation last year. We've looked at it at the county. We're having discussions at the county now of how can we, the county, encourage economic development as it relates to agribusiness. This is a good example. So, and then to the hearings officer being a little uncertain of maybe where's the board and what we might be looking at in interpretations and the new legislation and subsequent laws are really kind of not real definitive. So I think if we want to, just starting from the premise for myself, if we want we want to work with our community members, our property owners, and particularly with our ag industry. We need to work with them. And so this is an opportunity to look a little closer at it and see what's possible and what's not acceptable in the spirit of helping agribusiness, the farm community, but also what the community determines as appropriate activity and how that meets the new state law. So that's kind of the summary from my standpoint.
Well, and responding to Commissioner Brentano's comment, this is on page 15, it would be useful for us to, I mean, the hearings officer just says horse racing is not for a farm use. And I'm assuming that she knows that because she's a land use attorney and understands all of that. But there's nothing really cited in here that I could see.
No.
That like a court case or the section in the state law or whatever. So it would be useful for us to be able to have that information to know for sure so that we don't interpret that it is and then find out that it's appealed to a higher court and they say, well, actually it's not because right in this administrative rule
Right.
from LCDC,
Right.
it says you can't or whatever. So that would be useful. And the distinction between horse boarding and horse racing and what the parameters are of horse boarding so that we're all clear about that when we're involved in this case.
Yeah, this brings forward a lot of new terms and and ideas of how to hold events that are ag related. So I think there's
for a motion?
consensus
Okay.
to discuss or support the appeal, and then we can get into the particulars from that point.
Madam Chair, if I could, then I'd make a motion that we do hear the appeal of a hearings officer's decision denying CU 12028 Sonnen, clerk's file 5673, and set a hearing date, if I heard it correctly, December 5th.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Okay, those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. We do not have a public hearing this morning, and so the next thing is I will read those places that we will be in the next week. Of course, today, November 21st, we're finishing up our board session here. Thursday, November 22nd, tomorrow is Thanksgiving, a holiday, so the county offices will be closed. Monday, November 26th at 9 a.m., we have the Marion County Annual Jail Tour. That will be at the jail's administrative office, 4000 Almsville Highway, Southeast in Salem. On Tuesday, November 26th at 8:30 a.m. is the Community Corrections Board meeting in the Columbia Santiam River Conference Rooms at 451 Division Street, Northeast in Salem. Following that meeting on November 27th, Tuesday at 10 a.m. is the Housing Authority meeting, also in the Columbia River Conference Room, 451 Division Street, Northeast in Salem. Wednesday, November 28th at 9 a.m., we will be back here for our board session here in the Commissioner's Boardroom at 1115 Commercial Street, Northeast in Salem. So you're ready for Saturday.
Well, you noticed that.
I noticed.
I thought I was being real subtle. I didn't wear the one that's got the Benny Beaver thing on it. I just it's kind of there. I didn't want to say anything, but you're right. I'm looking for good things. I was earlier in the year not so confident. Still
Now
the
you are.
underdog. I'll be there, hoping for the best.
Are you going to be at the game?
Yeah.
Oh, good for
Oh,
you.
sure. I've had tickets for a long time, but they always conflict with other things. On this jail tour Monday, that was one of the more interesting things of being a commissioner is to get in there and see what it's really like. Visions that you have that it's kind of like country club stuff, believe me. It's not.
It's
And this
not.
time with CCTV, and I'm not going to be there, and I'm disappointed about that. I'm going to, guess where I'm going to be of all places?
Oh, that's right,
Eugene.
the ONC. That's, yes, ONC.
But,
Your favorite place.
yeah,
Are
but
you
I
gonna
might
wear
be,
that tie
we'll
to
see.
Eugene? Yeah, Monday will be after the Saturday game, yeah.
I might.
You might really want to go to
I know
Eugene,
it.
right?
But the point I'm going to make is people here in Marion County, if they watch that, will get an opportunity to see. I know you have some
Yes.
other interviews of how the jail works, but it should be real interesting. And I was trying to make the point when I walked, I had no idea what it's like. It's not a country club. It's not pleasant. What looks like couches sometimes on the when they show a newspaper article on the jail.
Yeah.
These aren't really couches. They're plastic. If you sat on for about 10 minutes, you probably and just like one TV for everybody. It's not life as normal, and I think people will see that.
And it's not cable TV that they that they see either.
So
Yeah.
I think it'll be an interesting vision for the general public of what really goes on in the jail, that it's efficient, it's clean,
Yeah.
it meets all the requirements, even, what am I thinking of? It doesn't matter. But that it's a good operation. I think they're going to see that.
It is. And thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to touch on that too.
Civil
It-
rights is the words I was looking for. Sorry,
Right,
it slips my
right. Mm-hmm.
mind, but we meet those requirements and some, but still, it's not fun.
Well, and it'd be important too for people to understand that there's an inmate welfare fund, and when people make phone calls or, use the vending machines or whatever, those dollars go to pay for the amenities. So it's not like we're providing at taxpayer cost a lot of the extras. We're providing pretty much, and we've talked about this before in our meetings, but the food cost is $1 something per meal. Or,
Yeah, we ought to go
right,
there.
it's-
And it looks
right.
good.
Yeah, it does. They do a good job cooking, and we've
I should not
paid an arm and a
interrupt.
leg for the floor in the kitchen.
When we're done with our hour or two, believe me, that's all the time I want to spend there. I feel that every time, so if
We'll
I ever
find
have
out
to
it-
go there, believe me, we got issues.
It's encouragement that you don't ever want to spend any
No.
time there. Yeah.
We'll find out if it's ADA accessible too.
Oh, is this all designed to test that?
I guess,
Gee.
I'm learning.
Are you going to explain that for people? Like,
Oh.
Or do you have, it's HIPAA. No, you don't have to discuss your health.
No, I was carrying my grandson when I went to visit in Idaho, and I went off a curb. And the grandson is fine, but I'm not.
Grandma was a hero. She
Very
protected
nice.
the baby, so.
We would expect nothing less.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, that, I would add on to that, yes, at the jail tour, we will be, CCTV will be taping some of that to give viewers the opportunity to see what's inside there, and this is part of our Marion County, your community partner show that's really taken us to a lot of interesting and exciting places and opportunity to share with the public what we do here in Marion County. So
Will it include the Work Release Center, do you know?
I
Generally, we haven't done that, but, we can
yeah.
always ask.
People ought to see how that works, too.
Yeah.
We could, although as we do the tour, for the official tour, we will have a camera person with us. We can look at probably separately do the work center and
I won't be
very
there,
good
so
point.
just do whatever you think's right.
Okay, good advice though to capture that. Yeah, well, enjoy
Or might
your.
as well go for the parole and probation if you want to show the whole package.
We just, because as we go through with these different segments of the community partners show, we thought, wait a minute, we're doing the tour, why not get the camera there then? And so we have the opportunity to put together a full segment on the sheriff's office, corrections, and all the aspects. So, good.
And then I'm changed subject one time. I think it was our last meeting, talking about the observations going up to OHSU and comparing it with our Courthouse Square bill. I got some criticism. Apparently, I didn't make it clear that when this is all fixed, those problems and concerns will all be in the past. So I want to take this opportunity to say, when it's fixed, it will be fixed. There.
What was the OHSU thing?
Oh, maybe what there. I have a friend who's up at OHSU, and I'm suddenly looking at architecture, was the point I was making, and noticing the columns of their
Oh, that they were
parking
much
garage.
bigger,
Not
right.
just a little bit, like,
yeah.
like 10
remember
times
that, right,
bigger.
yeah.
And just making the comparison with our own parking garage. But anyway, what I got criticized on is leaving the impression that it was really unsafe and might still be, and I don't think it will be.
Oh, I understand
It won't
that.
be. Thank you.
So somebody back at the office.
Yeah, they
was
just don't see the
listening.
whole picture.
What were you doing?
Yeah, why are you saying those kind of things? I'm trying to clear it up and I'm getting deeper in. Let's just
Okay.
end it that it's gonna be better, safer,
Going to be better and safer.
Absolutely.
period.
We're there. Okay.
And Thanksgiving is one of my favorites. I just listened on the radio, somebody had it listed at like number 9, starting with your birthday and then Christmas. Yeah, come on, it's a good one.
It's a good one. It's much higher than,
So your
Chris-
favorite pie?
Well, I do that correctly. I thought I explained that to you. I don't really have a favorite, so I take some of all. But pie is a key word.
Okay.
I don't know if I ever told you this story. It might be one of my favorite cartoons I can't get out of my mind. Just in a magazine, it showed and it was a series that I wish I knew who the creator was, but it showed kind of a cowboy and his wife eating dinner, and he's looking at a book and he's looking down, and they got the pie on the table. Anyway, it says, I can see why people are having trouble with this new math. It says here that pi r square. Well, anybody can know that pi r round. And that'll fix you for your grammatical problem.
oh, that's good.
That's all I
Okay.
got.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Oh, I suspect you're not going anywhere this Thanksgiving. There's,
We are having it at my house,
You're
and I am cooking, so
Ooh.
it's
Uh-oh.
going to be an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Christian took me grocery
Mark
shopping.
wants to know if we're done or not. We're done.
Yes, yes. Yes, we are.